Welcome everybody to City Lights. And for those of you online, hello, welcome back again. As always, we are beaming to you from the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ohlone people. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge that and think about those who have come before us as stewards of the land. So it is always a pleasure to be celebrating a City Lights book, but not just any City Lights book, but number 24 in the Spotlight series. So, and of course, that this book is Patrick James Dunagan is even more auspicious. So, really such an honor and such a delight. And we also have Evan Kennedy, another Spotlight author, backing him up tonight. So I am going to turn it over now to Garrett Caples, who is the poetry editor and a senior editor here at City Lights and a fantastic poet in his own right.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. So yes, tonight we are here to celebrate volume 24 of the Spotlight series, City Bird and Other Poems by Patrick James Dunagan. But first, our opening reader. Our opening reader is the author of Metamorphoses, City Light Spotlight number 22, Evan Kennedy. Evan frequently describes himself as a poet and a bicyclist. His previous books include I Am I, To Trust the Joy, That Joy is No More or Less Than Here. I thought I could get through it. Then There, Now, Then, Before, long title, The Sissies, and Terra Firmament, as well as several chapbooks. He has written a novel called Stalled Death Train for a new press called Spunk. And I believe Noah Ross has something to do with that, who's standing by the stairs. It is a, I know it is David Bowie related. I've forgotten the rest of it at the moment, but that's coming up. He runs the occasional press, Dirty Swan Projects, was born in Beacon, New York, and lives in San Francisco. You're about to hear his poems, so I don't need to describe them. What I want to do is briefly pay tribute to the man. When I was a young man, my favorite thing in the world was to see live music. Everyone from the Stones to the Sugar Cubes. I was even willing to live in a tent for 3 days to catch the Velvet Underground at Glastonbury in 1992. For about 10 years as an adult, I was a music journalist, mostly covering hip hop for the Bay Guardian. And during that decade, I grew to fucking dread going to shows. Hip hop shows take place in the club, and virtually all of them are bad. The mics are wrong, the acoustics suck. The spectacle on stage is gross and boring. I only went for business, and it completely alienated me from going to shows, as they were almost always just stress and misery. After I stopped journalism, I stopped going to shows for several years. But getting to know Evan has restored this crucial enthusiasm to my life. Evan's the type of guy who's seen Dylan like 200 times. He'll travel across the country to see a show. It was inspiring. He had extra tickets for a Neil Young show at the Greek last year, so my wife and I bought them. It was one of the great shows of my life. Last fall, the Stones released their first album of new material in something like 20 years, and Evan convinced me to throw down for tickets in the pit in front of the stage. I was too ashamed to admit that I felt like I was too old to stand for that long, so I said yes. I was terrified for months leading up to the show. But of course, it was a completely amazing experience to be up close to one of my all-time favorite groups. It was as exciting as when I first saw them in 1989 from the Nosebleeds. There's an infectiousness to Evan's devotion to live performance that finally rinsed all of the dirt of journalism from my tired soul and put me back in the game. So thanks, Evan, for reintroducing me to what I still think is one of life's great joys. He's quite a performer himself, so you'll get a little taste of that tonight. And to take a page from the Stones, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the world's greatest rock and roll fan, Evan Kennedy.
All right. I'm so glad to be celebrating City Bird with you tonight. I planned these remarks not knowing that Pat would be sitting right behind me, but I'll just stick with them. Yeah, this book is it's a curriculum and reaffirms my devotion to San Francisco and writing taking place here. It's rare to meet somebody who's so well read and yet so humble. I'm speaking about Pat. Someone who's such a straight talker He's a bit of a straight talker, and yet who's such an easy blush. So I could go on, but then Pat would pull City Bird from circulation, rendering this evening. Thank you. I'm gonna read one poem from Metamorphoses and then a series of poems that have just sprung from it. Because poems beget poems, they're all the same poem. They're all old poems, even when they're new. One eats while the other watches. Our souls are two crows observing us from a branch. Meanwhile, swelling, receding, and life forms, embryos, stillborns carry, and we're recomposing each other, transcribing, reciting, dripping to roots. My body dispersed, reformulated by others. My insides turn to foliage, a riot of blooms, while mine become a poet's. We reach the moment where we can't remember whose mouth these words are coming from. The words encouraging us to life, originating us in this tree. One bird, a crow for now, has a belief in everything, even the invisible. The other has libidinous syntax and a nervous lump in its throat. They might only be breathing to select the contours of our destruction. Call it perfect disarray, dispersing the origin, we re-enter, a thread through every existence. Oh, thank you. You are a dying night. Nobody knows your whereabouts. You're perfect and alone, hidden in tall grass. Not even dogs find you. You are scentless, an image I've worked toward adulating. Victim of violent crime reaching across centuries, fully accepting mine. Every living thing is an existence you choose at different moments of your life. Every living thing is an identity you choose to inhabit out of curiosity. It's your experiment or question. Lost hunting dog thrown off your scent by other living things you became. No city continuing until recovered, no contemporaneity unreflected. Why'd we get our bodies to begin with? It was our choice. When would I have ever said yes to this fiasco? In a moment when facts got mass, too much to handle, and you and I pushed against them like we did some heavy door in a narrow city in where, probably our origin city, a narrow way between appointments and conversations. You made it your task to plant an inverted tree. It was my dream or ambition. Your task was to keep the green part below ground. Back then, the method was known. The buried dead were neighboring in your leafy branches. I sometimes saw the tree as myself, roots set in the sky. I ask, how do you water it, that inverted tree? What can perch in your roots and how do you thrive green and new and even buried? I might see myself there. And what animals do you allow to rest and how do they get there? And how do they like the roots, R-O-U-T-E-S? I mean the roots, R-O-O-T-S. I'd sooner believe in anything you'd turn upside down before me. Sometimes you bump me while I'm writing and it makes wild errors in the narratives I copy. Always a flood story and a wedding. One wayward line and entire civilizations look different, like how we crossed the sea and read our vows aloud, and always a descent to the underworld, promising each other that whoever dies first will return and tell the living friend what it is like. Asking readmission, then deciding we'll just go in uninvited. Estrangering ourselves, intercutting impression with admonition. Take me to the place where sweet William and Barbara Allen were buried. Show me where from his heart grew a red, red rose, and from her heart, a briar. Take me to Scarlet Town, to Charlotte Town, to every town in every variation. Take me to where the Titanic, that great ship, went down. Take me to where engine 143 crashed. Take me to where the old 97 wrecked going 90 miles an hour. Take me to the place where John Henry defeated the steel drill. Then on our way home, put traffic cones on the hoods of self-driving cars. while copying a ballad from a while back about what were they, crows, a pair of them, on a branch talking about their next meal. One crow says, I know what we can eat. There's a dying knight nearby. His dogs haven't found him and his lady doesn't know he's wounded. What color are his eyes? Blue. How much armor does he wear? None. He took it off. It's in a pile beside him. All he wears is a sheet of linen. He's despairing and his lungs are failing. He wears a sheet of linen. He's despairing and his lungs are failing. A wound in his side drains him, but can he defend himself? Doubtful. Even from us, can't picture it. I can't believe our luck. We lost our forms, our sense of a start. We go out trying to get our forms back. In our efforts, our lives force us into other bodies. We are going through too many forms. We are needing to imitate others, but get even more lost. We might need to learn how to ally or pacify. We could receive our first forms from a helper, a piece of advice, a talisman. We forget what we learned through suffering and need to be brought back, but I am afraid of pain. I don't want to die. We lose and recuperate endlessly. This isn't in order. The timeline isn't right, and that's the point. This poem should be about the origin of the world, but instead it's about how we lost our first forms, then worlds sprung up from them. Our names will never deny because we forget them and all that preceded us. You can hazard a guess, flipping through the radio, taking trains randomly. While taking trains randomly, I heard Bill Dooley begin singing about Frankie Baker killing her lover Albert. Then buskers on street corners pick up his news, changing the details, placing the shooting at a pool room, ballroom, brothel, alley, drugstore. They're adding dialogue, soap opera death scenes before Albert's even declared dead. They're throwing in ice cream parlors, weepy gravesite visits, an ongoing composition. Oops. Can I borrow your eraser? May I borrow your eraser? May I borrow your eraser? No. I might make a mistake as my senses are redirected. I might be losing my sight, then yell for help, only to discover my sense of sight migrated into my mouth. I see the city perfectly with my mouth open, a gawker, a different sense, a shadow of one bred out of me, rushing from my origins to the present to help me, though I hardly make use of my new sense before I am drawn to you. In the hands' footsteps, in the eyes tasting, in waves that hit the shore and start walking on land with the fish that they hold. A pattern, a citation, winding a thread through your pulse, then mess and a threat. Let me try on Madonna's conical bra. Let me try on Mozart's pink wig. Let me try on Arthur Russell's corduroy shirt with a pocket his sister sewed on for his notebook. Let me wear the goose flesh I get when I hear you rehearse. Dressed like this, take me to the Eagle. Take me to Aunt Charlie's. Play me Sylvester's You Make Me Feel Mighty Real. How about you play me anything by disco visionary Patrick Cowley? Take me to wherever bus station John is DJing. I was fish-like and floating in the waves of in the rivers of your two arms, waiting for my body to still before I was made into this. I can hear it, can you? Within me, one genome goes quiet while another starts to speak. Give me a peek at your intuition of pulling up your roots and walking on them, two-throated, widening with light to crack, stanch, and ache, like the way I learned to breed with snakes when a swarm of scales slap and fasten onto me. Blood chilling, weaving in the river between your hairy legs as you are being blessed. A crow observes us from a branch. Its buddy, another crow, is busy eating, looks ravenous actually, like it can eat 10 times its weight. And I wonder if that's where your missing parts have gone down the throat of local crows. My theories are only intuited when a particle manifests itself along the unseen wave linking your origin and potential. I don't believe in evolution. These features and behaviors replicate in chance affinities. You say stop asking questions. You say far from me, you will get lost in despair. You'll think your friends and family never existed. You think you've been abandoned and that your consciousness itself is a lie. You could die meaninglessly, and that night you'll shape my absence into a companion, or in daylight a shadow of one. And if I don't find you entire, you will surround me irreducibly, invisibly. All lost details leave en masse to make a world again. The form we might have taken, the hour we might have lived. With every word you added, I lost a face. I felt I was blooming in your withering. I was growing with your contracting. Then why can't I convince you that an equalizing force exists between us? That's too heady. Speak with more heart. Why can't I convince you we're equal? You haven't tried to persuade me of that. I've tried to teach you that the goodness you extend to others does me harm, and I've benefited when you have harmed others. Now you'll ask how. Yes, how? If I put a name to it other than yours, it just wouldn't sound right. You don't know my name. I don't care if you don't know the name I have for you. My name for you is whatever I cry out when I'm dealt that benefit or harm which visits me unannounced on an unexpected day. I've never seen you in daylight. You must be making some terrible mistake. No, wrong again. My form has changed so often you wouldn't even recognize me, even if I were your immediate victim or beneficiary facing you in daylight. But what you do to me comes to me from afar. You don't need to know the name I have for you to have the ways to act all how you feel and see all that you do to me. I read Be Mine and First Kiss and other texts from heart-shaped candy spelled out by the veins of leaves in a unicorn's enclosure. That fence around a mythical animal, that's the structure of my writing, or so I hope. If you ever catch one, no one will know what it is. Like poetry, it's unrecognized. Enclosing your suffering with my friendship, imaginary creature I am becoming, careless with my past. I don't believe in evolution. I believe in what I've set out to find, though I'm not exactly sure it exists. But if it does, I know you accompany it in your hunting ground, your city block, in your waves that hit the shore, then walk on land. The forms forgotten within me push against my inner ribs, from under my navel, from under the soles of my feet. I try to stamp them back, get back in. It's not that I want to lose or repress them. I'm sustaining consensus. Their painful rush toward a very specific terminus or termini, creating weight. We promised each other that who'd ever die first would return and tell the other how it is. It was an act of friendship. A week after I buried you, you appeared and you said, "It's not what I thought it would be. It's not what you think it will be. The laws differ. The laws differ." And here there's a tear in the manuscript. "So that the birds of the air," tear in the manuscript, "ground," tear in the manuscript. "I have no body like on earth," tear in the manuscript. "Yours." You're laid on your back by mushrooms up in Joshua Tree boulders, February 2021. Delight in identifying with a repertoire of expressions in Kafka and Chopin. Your smile of recognition spans centuries, continents. It's a language like those not making art, but instead living life. I mean animals. Two crows circle overhead, eyeing you for dinner. They think you're dead when you're emerging from a trance that was without feeling, without content. You met attributeless being, the animating force not in the eye, but that by which the eye sees. The animating force not in the eye, but that by which the eye sees. As Judy Garland sang, that's entertainment. When I want to feel San Francisco is strong, I play Nature Boy. I play Serpent Power. I'm tired of Jeanette MacDonald. I'm playing Judy Garland, then I'm playing Funeral Chants, then Arthur Russell. I don't care if summer is over. Play me the Song of Summer, Padam Padam by Kylie Minogue. Then play Padam Padam by Edith Piaf. who was blind from ages 3 to 7. Buy me eggs and toast at Compton's cafeteria. Play me Karen Dalton's Green Rocky Road, lyrics by Bob Kaufman. Thank you.
And that's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Evan. That was great. It's always spotlight's like a kind of, we're trying to spread out the platform for as many poets as we can. So it's always like a kind of one and done deal. But when I hear the poets that I put in the spotlight read something new, I get mad. I'm just like, oh, why can't I publish it? That was a great poem. Thank you. And now for our main event. I would like to introduce the author of our latest volume in the Spotlight series, City Bird and Other Poems, Patrick James Dunagan. Patrick is the author of many poetry collections, including Drops of Rain, Drops of Wine, Sketch of the Artist, and After the Banished. I just listed ones I could pronounce. As well as a book of criticism, The Duncan Era. He also edited Rock Dow, by David Meltzer, with whom he studied at the legendary New College of California. He has lived in San Francisco for over 20 years. The journey to Patrick Spotlight volume was one of the most circuitous ones thus far in the history of the series, and I will tell it here, hopefully to put it to rest one last time on video, and I'll stop telling the story. A bit more than 10 years ago, I asked Patrick if he'd give me a manuscript to consider for the series, and that motherfucker said no. I wasn't used to poets not wanting a book. But Pat told me he wasn't well known enough, and he'd also been reviewing books. He thought it'd be better for City Lights if he had a free hand to review our books without the appearance of any conflict of interest. And he was 100% right, but that didn't make it anything less than a selfless act of generosity. And true to his word, he reviewed many City Lights publications. There were books we did where Pat was the only reviewer to write about them. I've been very grateful to him, even as I still wanted to publish him in the series. Some years later, when we've all been advancing into middle age, Pat came around to the idea of wanting to do a book in the series. Is he sufficiently well known now? Who knows? Now we don't even have the excuse of youth. But nonetheless, I was determined to do it. Shortly after lockdown began in 2020, Pat sent me a long poem, like 50 or so pages, called Sandwich. Anyone who knows me knows I don't like long poems. Everything I enjoy about poetry takes place under the microscope. Long poems tend to dilute this enjoyment. But I started reading and I never found myself getting bored or lapsing in attention. And by the time I finished it, I knew I wanted this to be the centerpiece of the Spotlight volume. It takes up half the book, so it had to be the title piece. I wasn't about to publish a book called Hugh Sandwich. So I made him come up with something more suitable, which he did. I went old school with the form, City Bird and Other Poems, in an homage to Howl and Other Poems, just to underline the gravity of the situation. Putting together this book with Patrick was a lot of fun. I'm thrilled to finally be able to say, please join me in welcoming the latest author in the Spotlight series, Patrick James Dunagan.
So is that good? Everyone can hear me? Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I'd just like to thanks. It's nice to see a full crowd. That's cool. Many thanks for everyone for coming. Definitely tons of thanks to Garrett for the work that he did on this book. Very thankful. Peter, thank you for hosting and running things. And then everyone at City Lights, which is it's a big crew. So just everyone involved, from the bookstore to the publishing, everything. Thank you very much. Oh, and thanks to Evan. Jesus, Evan, that was really fucking, that was just like kick ass. So I was very honored, you know, and it's hard to come up after it too, which is the way it should be. Yeah. Okay. A Western. John Wayne breaks the heart, a solid wall of ass. Those blue suede shoes, pissing where he pleases. A man turns and runs from such encounters. It was a wilderness, and now it's a garden. Talking to her choice. It was her place that cactus bloom. In the wrong, Jeff makes it with Kelly. Kelly makes it with Jeff in the right. Kelly and Jeff make it, and that's terrific. Tom never got to make it with her. The West never stood a chance. Wild, head over heels, falling flat on your face. These matters have come to such a pass, we must turn bullies to begin to end a national literature. What I need is 3 good lines. And that was March 1st, 1999. And so let's never make that great again. Walking up O'Farrell, it really isn't so bad. The fierce wind blows about your hair. You feel vulnerable, unable to despair. Hundreds walk with you. You feel them in the air. Hundreds of hearts, hundreds of walks, hundreds of heads with hundreds of thoughts. In the instant, the one you love fails to love you back. You figure you'll never know love any other way. And then you do, and everything's okay. So at the front of the book, there's some what we decided to call suppositions, which are little epigraphical statements. And so one of them, well, first the cover is right down on Van Ness and Market. It's a building. There's a donut shop if you're coming down to the south, right on the corner, and the building right behind an empty lot. And then there's this mural. And the artist was Josh Coffey. Yeah, I knew the Coffey, but just messed up the Josh. But Josh Coffey. And so he recently passed away, unfortunately, at too young of an age. So it was really nice that we were able to use his image, and that was Garrett's suggestion. And so we thanked the Coffey family, and I thank Garrett for the idea. And it came out really nice, I think. And so this is the one supposition. Mission, Market, and Van Ness. It is like the beginning of a poem or the end of one. And that's R.L. Doofus, who's a real newspaperman, San Francisco, from the 30s to the 50s, I think. This is right there where those streets are. And that one, I had that in the book before we even get to the cover. So now I'm just going to read from the title poem, City Bird, but I'll be moving through it. So some jumps. City Bird, imponderable, Hugh declared, delighted in his proclamations, ever immersed, through anecdote, thoroughly launching his joy beyond mere audition, sounding off on any or every possible hushed, occluded effort, channeling his thoughts, advancing upon the world, passing around in her song. This or that mountaintop, once thought highest, yet now recognized as only numbering among the tallest peaks, earliest settlers of this area took to calling paradise. What's been said, who knew what and where, details of the ongoing job. Not heading out, staying around home, pondering the next move. I wonder in my thoughts, wander, evoking Wordsworth, Whitman, or is it Proust? Confusing, recalled readings, even the imaginary remains, nothing but an attempt that fails escape the all too real of the real. Did the missing text turn up? The bells begin in less than an hour. I'll turn the radio back over then, and we'll have that walk I promised. To gather information, watching light roll over sand with the waves, transforming instance after instance as the waves roll back again and again. Over millennia, rocks form tide pools, amazing inconsistency of constant occurrence. We called him Toots, given his tendency to blow bubbles, which he then loved to indiscreetly pop. Just passing the time, he called it. We loved him. His lips were precious pressure points of our markedly shared enthusiasm. The workshop slid back and forth on the slopes of hilarity, living and breathing with circumstantial heft of the subjects covered. The young are eternal and dumb, because that's all they hear. Transmigration, as Saravallo knew, is needed. What you are unable to see is exactly what you must realize. Geographical maps are such beautiful things, Apollinaire. How we desire truth in fragments. Timidity is no vice. The young fracture the old. Pop insisted there be rules. He brought over some golden rods, offering them up. If the house proved agreeable, they'd have an arrangement. When I came into the picture, nobody cared about identity. Kerouac's American Sideshow notwithstanding. We pull off, forgetting our missions, forgetting our miasma, lapsing in the pit stop routine of standard watering. The poet behind the work is comfortable, moving mouths of others. His or her ideal reader is an open value, willing intake of whatever flows arrive, beginning the next shift, initiating an ever-varying approach towards, if not completion, that which by its very nature compels incompletion. Murder of crows flapping around roof peaks, calling into the morning air. I'll wake with scattered ink and watch how they soar about above the street out front, bestowed radiance, the coming light gently rising from off hilltops as the cars swing up, activity in the street, trains and cars sharing the middle lanes, that passing pedestrian, the sidewalk grimaces under, all the hustle of fabricated thoroughfares. How useless. Our agendas reshape nothing, never have. Where the ink sets down doesn't necessarily serve as counterpoint. Seeking words to live by, words her afternoon airs took turns reciting. Note the lilting casual delivery of her proclamations. Joy rising up crashes against a glare from front windows. No simple hi. A new alphabet would be a good idea, but who would draw numbers for all those characters? That moment when you only know of arriving, proof demanding of countenance, one bowl exchanged for bowler hat. Deeply peculiar need that will know no satisfaction. From the lives of others, we draw understanding. With passion comes the allure of belonging. We pass away without care. Dare we ignore the endless draw once we become aware. Friend at the center of every one of us reaches out to the lonely mind with stubborn tenacity. Give us the words to obey. Write the script the sky wept. Then there's a piece in here as 25 for Lou Welch. which I'm just going to read a few or a couple sections of. The what? Yeah, two for Lou. Two for Lou is good. We'll go with two for Lou. Let's see. You know, Lou always cries when he reads, and it will ruin the evening. That's Joanne Kiger. Tall and lanky with a bursting head of red describes Lou Welch if he was a good-looking woman. That was two for Lou. Let's see. And this is after reading Max Jacob, which is based off some translations that the poet Peter Boyle, who's an Australian poet, shared over email. And then I was out at Ocean Beach and this came out. After reading Max Jacob, that excitement come of joy for being so lost, luxurious illusion embraced, made real in the momentary, yes, yes, friendly with a laugh, another tanker against sunset and tide low, lumbering out into the Pacific, at mercy of no God other than nature. I believe in religion like magic, like science, religion to save the planet, our souls but one soul, belief in whatever suits. Isn't the problem belief slips away, too easily caricatured. Back to the poem, lit up under these pines across from the beach, a glow resonating, highlights all. Nothing's better than the Pacific at sundown. Wisdom is the sun. Some bistro youth vanishes into, where all at once I came upon love, a long avenue, convincingly lit as if forever. The addition of yet another station, which we approach with the tide low, penitent, while flies refuse, leave us be. And then I think it's good to mention that today is Sarah Menefe's birthday. So happy birthday, Sarah. And you are our favorite poet, so I speak for the city. Yeah. This is a Beyond Reach. In impossible realms, tattooed virgins Melville knew of work out the literature blues, mouthing their names for each other. One is wisdom wrong, another paralyzed perfect. I let them mess with my hair. This took place centuries ago. I had brought Homer along, his rudimentary charm and dialogue, won over big with the little ones. Having withheld the story for so long, I'm pleased it's now coming out. I have put away my sorrow, tattooed virgins Melville knew of. Glad I brought Homer along. His chance, the dance continues. And I'm almost done. So this is another supposition from Helene Sisu. Within every sensitive soul, sailor, poet, invalid, there is always a great ape and a tomb. This is Lullaby. My father changed his habit. I followed him nightly down the blocks. His route became an ever-increasing mess of dead ends, reversals, changes made at random. I lost him only to find him casting about, chasing his own dead ends. Once I searched him out, he'd slip free, never one to be cornered. His paths led to doom, swallowing him. Nightly I follow. He's gone. I'm watching him go. And I'll just end with this. So see, there is this young coyote, or I should say coyote, I've come across a few times now, early mornings, as he slopes his way across a relatively wide open space between low-lying shrubs and lawn to the west, with the beginning of the small oak hills walk to the east. Fulton borders the area to the north, and the large, smooth asphalt roller skating pad is immediately south. He's a nonchalant, cool-ass cat with nice coloring shades of dark gray, rubbed with smatches of brown. His movement is of deliberate casualness. He has always been at the table with the poets and artists, and he will always be there. He doesn't say much, but we feel all the cooler for the company. Lucky us. And that's November 17th, 2021. I see Coyote at different routes these days. Thank you very much for coming out.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Evan. And thank you all for coming. You know, it's these spotlight readings like this are, we used to do them routinely, and then everything stopped with the pandemic. And every time I do one now, it feels very precious. And I'm so happy that you all came, and I thank you all for coming and being interested. Thank you so much.